And turn on the microphone, it might help. The town hall offices will be closed on Monday, February 15th for the observance of President's Day, Wednesday, February 24th through Friday, March 4th at 5 p.m., filing period for candidates running for town offices to be elected at the town meeting. Thursday, February 25th at 7 p.m. here in the Matthew Thornton Room, a regular council meeting. Thursday, March 10th at 7 p.m. in the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary All-Purpose Room, located at 26 Babusick Lake Road, is the deliberative session. And Thursday, March 24th at 7 p.m., again here in the Matthew Thornton Room, regular council meeting. Before I start, I'd like to be able to read a statement to the town and its citizens. First of all, allow me to acknowledge that the citizen complaints regarding the traffic difficulties during the presidential primary have been heard, and that the town accepts full collective responsibility. Allow me to also apologize and say that we are sorry for the great inconveniences experienced by our citizens. Regardless of the many variables that might have been involved, the bottom line is it shouldn't have happened. As a result, the council has directed the election officials and the police department to analyze the causes of the difficulties and come before the council with solutions in order to avoid this problem as much as possible in the future. I have asked that any and all options be examined, including need for additional resources, improved signage, handicap accessibility, and the use of more than one polling site. This information will be scheduled as an agenda item on a town council meeting and will be discussed in this public forum. Hopefully this will occur at the end of March or no later than early April. Today, a link was created on the Town of Merrimack website homepage at merrimacknh.gov to accept suggestions and ideas from the public. And we've had a lot of questions related to how this all came about. And I want to be able to refer you to dates that can be accessed at the website related to town council meeting minutes so that you know how we came to this decision. And those dates are June 28th, 2012, September 13th, 2012, and September 28th, 2012. There was also a joint school board and town council meeting that there are also minutes available for because there was a discussion at that time, and that occurred on September 6, 2012. So hopefully that will help provide some background information for you. I already said I was sorry. Oh, okay. At this point in time, usually we only allow public comment related to the agenda. But I don't think I want to have people wait to the end of the meeting to have that happen. So anybody may come up at this point and make a public comment. The only thing I ask when you come up, please state your name and your address. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rosemary Rung at 21 Ministerial Drive. I had the privilege of working the election on Tuesday as a ballot clerk. And I saw firsthand voters that had come in frustrated with the traffic situation. But despite that frustration, they were so nice and pleasant. Even the people that were angry were really nice. But I do want to let the council know that we have a lot to be proud of in Merrimack. The town employees that worked the election, I was so impressed with their professionalism. Lynn Christensen was stellar. I mean, she kept her cool. I was right in front of where all the media were parked in the room. So I know that, it was bad because of the traffic and that some voters never made it to the polls, but there were a lot of good things that I don't want us to forget about. I did promise people that I would do whatever I could to make it better in the future. So if you're ever looking for someone to serve on the committee or lead a citizens committee that could give some input to the police and to the town officials and to you, my number's in the book. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to Kinder Morgan. There really is nothing new to report that I know of. Is there any comments from the public about Kinder Morgan? Okay, seeing none. Recognitions, resignations, retirement, there are none. Appointments, none. And without objection, I would like to move under new business the Eagle Scout project proposal for Wasserman Park so that he doesn't have to wait and miss doing his homework. I want to thank Matt Kasparius, welcoming you to be able to go ahead and go right ahead and do it. Okay, so the Eagle Scout candidate, Nick LaRoche, is proposing to build a pathway of solar-powered lampposts from the function hall towards the visitor parking lot at Wasserman Park. Please do.
Make sure that your microphone's on
Should be a bright green.
and pull it closer to you. It's not as good as some for catching voice from a distance.
Right. So my proposal for an Eagle project is at Wasserman Park. There's that area between one of the rec buildings and the parking lot, and there's really almost no light from there. And I have marked with little stars the areas I'd like to put up posts by having 4x4 posts, which I can bevel the edges, paint them to the same color, whatever color you'd like, or anything of that nature, and mounting a solar-powered floodlight to each one to light up the area. And I would want to dig them 3 feet into the ground, cement them in, so they wouldn't go anywhere.
It
And
wouldn't move on you.
there are 2 spots that I'd like to put these posts that if I would get permission to just lag bolt them into a pre-existing post, because you can see on like one of the pictures, you can see there's that little sign says, that's too blurry to read, but that I could just lag bolt the post directly into it, and I wouldn't have to dig another separate hole. And there is the sign right next to the restroom that indicates that it's a restroom. That is essentially just kind of sitting there. There's nothing keeping that one in the ground. When I went to check, that's just going to fall out. So I'd like to completely replace that with one of those posts and re-bolt the sign to the new post with the floodlight attached to it. Then I did find a solar-powered floodlight. Now, this one has it's LEDs, so essentially you could leave an LED on for 10 years straight and it won't burn out. So assuming these run for 3 hours a night, it would last for like 33 years. They're also super hard to break, which is kind of nice.
It's just 3 hours a night. Is it timed?
These have motion sensors,
Okay.
so when something would walk in front of it,
Gotcha. Okay.
you can also adjust settings, so they might stay on for 60 seconds or 5 minutes,
Gotcha.
depending on what you want.
Excellent.
This solar panel also does hold a charge, which is real nice. They don't need direct sunlight, which that's optimal, but they will still get a charge from indirect sunlight, or if it's a cloudy day, they will still have enough power to work. So,
My question was what, if it's under trees, but you answered the question. Because there'd probably be a lot of shade there, but
yeah,
that's not an issue.
Well, south is up the hill, too.
yeah.
Questions of the council? We always love to see the Eagle Scouts come in here, applicants. They have done so many things for this town. Yes, Jody?
Thank you, Nancy. I just had a question. It might be for Matt or Eileen. The park now, is that open after dusk? Or is the park...
Matt Kasparius was going to answer that.
The purpose of the project, excuse me, this project came about because we started looking at, we're in the process of getting ready to open the function hall up to rentals.
Gotcha.
And we started thinking, okay, if it's a nighttime rental, it's pitch black down there right now. This was our idea of how to address that problem.
Okay.
Perfect.
So generally, the park does close at dusk, like all other parks, but if we're renting the facility, obviously that changes.
So we're hoping to be able to do nighttime rentals?
Yes.
And this would help tremendously, obviously.
This
Okay.
would make it safe to go from the parking lot to the building, considering if you're not a, say, young Boy Scout that can see through the dark.
That can carry a big
And-
flashlight
Yeah,
If,
up and down that hill?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bushwhack.
Yeah. Well, I would think that a project like this would absolutely be essential in order to rent out that function hall at night. So, okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions or
Yes, Tom.
concerns?
3 feet deep enough?
Yeah,
Uh,
concrete. Just,
The
I'll
rule of
have
thumb
math
around here
to
for
show.
most things is 4 feet because of the frost line. But you can check with the
I
building inspector.
Is that, did you already speak to the building
I have
inspector?
not, because
Okay.
I was in the process of getting this approved. I don't want to start doing other things and then have it shot down. That would be sad.
Okay. But I wouldn't be surprised if, I think that should be
Yeah.
part of the requirement. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, though.
All right.
It just means you have to work a little deeper.
Well, no, it would, it
Unless
might
you hit
impact
ledge.
might impact the cement, the
Okay.
amount of cement,
The cement costs.
yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're
But-
lucky to hit ledge and there's your,
It may be fine.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
That does bring up a good point, because I'm not honestly sure where it is just a post, so it might change how deep it would actually
right,
need to be.
yeah.
If
yeah.
it's a building, they recommend 4 feet, but other objects, I'm not entirely sure if that is a constant.
you'll find
We're
out.
just thinking down the
You'll find out,
road,
yeah.
because if the thing starts to heave,
Yeah,
you're gonna have it up in the air like this, or,
yeah.
We want to be able to enjoy it for years to come. Okay, yes, Dan.
Just to thank you, Nick. We've had a lot of nice projects that come to us from the Boy Scout troops in town, and as you all know, Wasserman Park has been a priority for us for the last few years, and just this project is just another step, making it just a great project. So thank you very much for considering it. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Bill?
I concur with Councilor Dwyer's statement. Thank you.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the Town Council approve Eagle Scout candidate Nick LaRoche from Troop 24 proposed solar power pathway from the function hall up the hill towards visitor parking lot 8-11. To the visitors parking lot 8-11. Solar powered posts would be placed in a staggered pattern going up the hill to provide visibility to the park users who are there for sports, function hall rentals, and other evening activities. And furthermore, that if necessary, that if the town manager needs to sign any documents necessary to help out Nick, that she be authorized to do so.
Might I request the addition
And plus the
of-
addition of 4 feet
Well, to
No.
be reviewed by the...
to be reviewed by
The building
the
inspector.
building inspector, the depth regarding the depth of the posts driven to the ground.
Okay,
second.
a motion made by Bill Boyd, seconded by Tom Mahan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, 5-0-0.
Thank you, Nick.
Nick, congratulations.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
very much.
You're gonna scare the
Good work.
daylights out of all the raccoons out there.
It's okay.
Now you gotta go home and do your
Smile.
homework. You don't have an excuse.
Do you want me to turn this?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Have a good weekend.
Ah,
Well, the radio club will like it because when we do our field day down there, it's pitch black.
I'm sorry, Elaine, I forgot. Did you have any announcements to make?
I do not.
Oh. See, I knew that. Okay, Matt, come on up. First public hearing, Parks and Recreation Department revolving fund submitted by Parks and Recreation Director Matthew Kasparius. Town Council will hold a public hearing to consider establishing a recreation revolving fund in accordance with 35-B:2, and to designate the Director of Parks and Recreation as agent of proposed fund. So, they're coming to the rescue. Do you need a couple of minutes to be able to? I'm glad this is happening now and not during the budget presentation. I see fluctuating behind me, but. Okay, I guess we need a town council to recess for a moment for technical difficulties. Thank you. The finance guy is a master of all trades. I'd like to reconvene the meeting now that the technical difficulties have been resolved.
Another collective effort, successful.
Here we go, Matt. Go right ahead.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be finally here bringing forth this topic. We've been talking about this now for probably 2.5 years. It was going back to when I first interviewed here. And we were close last year, we just missed our deadline. Missed it. I do have some copies of the slideshow as well as the draft of the revolving fund policy that we're going to be talking about here on the side table in case anybody in the audience wants to take a look at that afterwards. So what, in its simplest terms, the revolving fund provides a system or structure to encourage basically self-funding of programs while promoting a creative and flexible approach to recreation. In the packets that you have in front of you gives basically a breakdown of how the revolving fund works, and we're going to kind of go through the major sections of that. I will point out that this policy is based on or modeled after other communities, including Nashua, Amherst, and Peterborough, who have all had this in place for a number of years. And you know, the policy seems to work well for them. So what's the benefit of a revolving fund? And there's two benefits, really. First was for Parks and Recreation, and second is for the taxpayers. For Parks and Recreation, it gives us greater flexibility to add new programs and services throughout the year and allows us to be a lot more responsive to kind of changing community needs. Right now, we kind of plan 12 to 18 months in advance when we're putting the budget out, our budget plan for that next fiscal year. But things can change pretty quickly in recreation, and we can't always adapt to those. For taxpayers, essentially, for the benefit of the people that are kind of watching at home, what I want to just talk about is kind of how the budget process works, since I know all of you understand it, but for those at home might not. So as I said, essentially we submit a budget in October of each year that it goes through the process with the council and then ultimately to the voters in the spring. But we're planning, submitting in October for, last October for June 2016 or July 2016 through June 2017, and kind of trying to guesstimate what those community needs might be. For most town departments, that's not a big issue since their needs might not change on a major basis, in that time span. But for Parks and Recreation, it's restrictive, which is why the state legislature did create this type of funding in the state. In terms of Parks and Recreation programming, essentially residents are pre-funding all of our programs. We come up with a figure, okay, 8 weeks of camp, we need this amount of money, swimming lessons, tennis, those types of things. And that's what's approved in the budget. And then when that registration money comes in for those programs, that money goes back to the general fund, kind of essentially reimbursing the taxpayers. With the revolving fund, we essentially take the taxpayers out of that loop. It's a separate fund, and so money comes into the revolving fund for program registration fees, and then we directly pay out salaries, supply expenses, those types of things. And the difference is the taxpayers are no longer fronting the money for those programs, but they also aren't getting the surplus revenues back at the end of the year. What this does for us, though, is as long as I've got money coming in for new programs, we can add programs throughout the year, and rather than waiting for that 18-month window potentially to add something new. And so in that sense, the patrons that are participating in our programs are the ones that are directly paying for the services versus kind of asking all taxpayers to kind of front the money up in front. So we're almost like a normal business would be, or an enterprise fund would be. Programs are designed to be self-supporting, but not, our profit's not our motivation, and obviously any programs that don't meet minimum enrollments and can't cover themselves end up getting canceled. We kind of operate this way now anyway, but like I said, in this case, we're kind of taking the taxpayers, that requirement for them to take them out of the loop. Now, in the current proposed budget for 2016-17, there's essentially $234,918 related to program expenses. That's salaries for camps and tennis lessons and swimming and, you know, those types of things. Next year, that money would go away. You know, our budget would be reduced by that amount of money, and we'd still be continuing to add. Using,
Yes, Eileen?
yeah.
You probably get to this ahead of me, but I'm probably jumping the gun here. But I just wanted to point out that that what the point really is,
Yeah.
that as Matt has pointed out, we're going to be removing the expenditures and we're going to be removing the respective revenues as
Yes.
well. So it's a revolving fund, and what he's saying is, and I'm sorry to
That's fine.
rephrase what you're saying, but basically, if they decide that a bunch of people want to go and take a big trip to Las Vegas,
Yep.
and all these taxpayers come to him and say, let's say the seniors want to go to Las Vegas. So he says, okay, I'm going to plan a trip. If he doesn't have enough money budgeted in his budget revenue and expenditures, he can't do that trip.
Even though the seniors might be paying for the trip.
They will be paying for
Right.
it.
Right.
That's the point.
But
is
you
that-
can't even.
Right.
Okay.
That was actually my next point, but that's okay because I can bridge onto that. But and the example, I think I used this during the budget hearing last month, which was summer camp last year. You know, camp ended the second week of August. We had 3.5 weeks from when camp ended until when school started, and parents were looking for programs. But because I didn't have a line item in a budget to be able to pay for salaries and expenses, we couldn't offer that service. If we had the revolving fund, obviously we could.
So it allows you more flexibility
Yes.
in terms of response, okay?
Yes. Okay. So what is the revolving fund? Kind of just technical details. Funding comes primarily through program registration fees, but also in the future could be if we ever started doing sponsorships, donations to the department. Those types of things could all be included in those types of through the fund. Money accumulates year to year, but it's not considered part of the general town surplus. So if we run a tennis program and we bring in $1,000 and we only pay out $950, that $50 doesn't come back to the general fund. It stays with the program. And I'll talk about surplus at the end here in a second. For clarification purposes, we don't have a separate checkbook. The town treasurer still has custody of all money. All bills are still paid the same way that they are. Just to make that distinction. Oops. Funds, what you'll see in the policy is funds may be expended only for kind of direct and indirect expenses of a program. So that might be salaries, it might be supplies, may be training employees, but it also can include indirect things. So marketing expenses, registration software, office supplies, anything kind of surrounding the running those programs, what it takes to run. Now, for example, summer camp, a significant portion of my salary is built into the cost of what summer camp offers, and so that type of thing is still permissible. Where the revolving fund can't be used, are things, one, they can't be used in any way to create a liability within the town. So I can't accept a grant that, you know, we have to have matching funds from the town for, or something along those lines. The revolving fund is also not designed to pay for kind of big capital purchases. If we had some future big capital need, you know, where we want to build an athletic field or something, the revolving fund is not the place for that. It would still remain in the capital budget process that all town projects go through. As I said earlier, you know, if we ran a tennis program and we had a $50 surplus at the end of the year, what we would be looking to do then would make a determination a determination of how to best kind of use those funds. So whether it's we decide we want to buy more tennis rackets for next year, or replace outdated equipment, or those types of things. But in that case, what we would do is at the end of the year, we'd report to the Parks and Rec Committee, the town manager, and the town council what we think we should be doing with that, so that there is that transparency. Now, I will point out, in my former position in Massachusetts, we did have a revolving fund, which when I left had about $400,000 a year flowing through it. In any given year, we would finish the year with usually less than $1,000. And more often than not, it was $200 or $300, because again, programs aren't designed to be profit makers; they're just designed to basically break even. So you're not going to see programs that we run suddenly skyrocket in cost, and those kinds of things, because that's not the goal. In terms of the overall budget process, we would submit, the rest of our budget in the fall as we normally would, but we would include with it kind of a summary of the prior year's program, so that all of you were aware of what we've done the last year, how numbers were looking, what, are the youth programs that are our most popular, adults, family programs, those types of things, as well as any new programs that we might be coming up with for the next year. We talked a couple of weeks ago, obviously, about the possibility of starting an after-school program, which by itself is about $60,000 to get up and running for a year. And so we would present that at that time in the fall when we do our budget presentation to you. But then again, going back to the flexibility, we could be able to add new programs, as going back to Eileen's example, the seniors want to go to Las Vegas. I've got a group of them, they want to pay. Okay, we'll set it up. Here it is. We go, and they pay for it, and then we pay for the cost of the trip out of it, and we can do it right away. What we've suggested here, and what most of the other communities do, is the director makes a proposal to the Parks and Rec Committee, and in this case, they would review it and kind of vet the program, and then make a recommendation to you, as that we do for a lot of our other programs. And the downside of that potentially is I could be before you monthly to talk about new ideas that come forward. Or the alternative would be if you wanted to give the Parks and Rec Committee that final say that I wasn't here on a regular basis, and I'll leave that particular topic up to you guys to decide. But again, in either case, we'd be talking to, keeping you up to date about new programs. So this next slide is some of the things that we could get off the ground in the next year. This is not a comprehensive list, but it's a start of things that could be easily activated.
It's not comprehensive?
No, it's actually not. This is about a quarter of the list that I have in my office on standby for this. So if I were to come to you in my fall budget request in our current structure and said, I want to start these 30 new programs, then I'd probably be asking for $200,000 or $300,000 in additional line item in my budget, and you guys would probably laugh me out of the room. And that's unrealistic. Obviously, with the revolving fund, we can now do it because we're not asking the taxpayers to front this money. If this is approved tonight and then also at the ballot in April, Paul and I have talked about kind of implementation. This would become active in July, but obviously we're in the middle of summer and our busiest season, paying salaries and expenses and everything else. So what we've talked about is basically full implementation for fall programming, because we have kind of a clear break from when summer stuff ends and fall stuff begins. So we've got those new revenues coming in to offset any of these new programs that we'd be adding. And at that point, we'd basically stop touching the town accounts, the general fund accounts. So the revolving fund doesn't require any seed money to get up and running. And as I said earlier, in next year's budget, when we come before you, we'd be reducing the program, zeroing out all the programming numbers, which is about $234,000. The way I see it and the way most recreation departments see it is that it's a win-win for everybody. Obviously for taxpayers, because they're no longer fronting that money, but for us, obviously, it gives us the greater flexibility to start adding a lot more programs on a much quicker pace, so that we can better serve the public. And I think that is my last slide, so I will, at this point, open it up to questions that you may have.
Hold on. We have to open the public hearing first. I actually remembered. I'd like to open the public hearing, please, at 7:43. Look at the rush. Absolutely. Come right up. Come right up. You got to come up.
Rosemary, well, never mind, you're there.
Rosemary Rung, 21 Ministerial Drive. I noticed on one of your slides, one of the proposed activities for adults is pickleball. I was wondering if you could define that.
Sure. Pickleball is, it's kind of like tennis, but on a smaller scale. And it's one of the more popular programs, particularly among older adults at this point. It uses a court that's smaller than a tennis court. It's a different shape of a paddle. But we've actually had a number of requests for it already.
Okay, thank you.
No. No, it's a racket sport.
Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the hearing at 7:44. And I will entertain any discussion, Mr. Mahan.
Yeah, so you're going to go to Las Vegas.
Do we get a discount? No.
And you usually have to, you want to go to Las Vegas, and usually you have to commit to a number of people in order to get a rate, okay? What happens if you don't, if it's not subscribed to what you need to make it go?
Then it would get canceled.
Okay.
And so we wouldn't make those commitments that, and a lot of times with the tour operators in particular, there's a window. And so say for a standard bus trip, maybe it's 30 days out, you have to have that certain number or they cancel. And we would do the same kind of thing. And obviously the bigger the trip, the bigger the window ends up becoming.
Okay.
Any
And
other?
how come your disc golf isn't up there?
Because the course is still being built, but it will be. It was under special events, other special events.
That's not the extended list. Yes,
Yeah.
Eileen?
Okay.
I should have brought this up earlier to Matt, but I feel a little bit left out here. I think, and this is just my opinion, that if you look at the policy itself, I think that under authority, I think that it should say that the treasurer, the last sentence, the treasurer of the town of Merrimack shall have control of all monies in the fund and shall only remit the equal amount upon the direct order by the town manager.
Eileen, what section is that you're referring to?
Right down here.
Under under
Right.
authority.
Paragraph.
Thank you.
Very last sentence of that paragraph. Anything else? Bill?
I actually had a question on the, a question and a correction on the policy. Ironically, under the authority section, the first sentence reads, "To propose to the town of Merrimack if the citizens of the town will consider a vote to create a recreation revolving fund." He's seeking approval of the particular fund, so why is that language necessary in this policy?
Because we're the legislative body at this point, since it's not a direct appropriation, we don't have to go to the voters to establish the account. It's right?
But we're asking,
A
But
revolving fund needs to be established by the residents in a ballot vote, and it has to be on a ballot, on a warrant article. on a ballot.
Okay.
so that's why it says the town will consider a vote to create.
All right. Thank you.
But hold on, but
I'll
the
just
agenda
shut
the agenda item reads, "The town council will hold a public hearing to consider establishing a recreation revolving fund. I read that as if we are the legislative body to establish this fund. The language says this has to go to the voters, and the voters have to decide whether or not they want this fund. It's contradictory.
Well,
What about if the motion had to do with creating a warrant for approval? That's a good point, Beth.
What needs to happen with the revolving fund is that you have to have a public hearing so people can discuss it. The council has to approve the special revenue fund and then place it on the ballot and the warrant to move forward to popular vote or a ballot vote in this case.
Eileen?
So you are
This is a public hearing that is in keeping with the other public hearings that you have on here. So this will be on the ballot, then this number 2 will be on the ballot for the budget, for the collective bargaining agreements and all that kind of thing. So these are all ballot items.
So would the motion be moved to the ballot? Motion to move to the warrant?
it's a motion to move to the warrant.
Tom's going there.
no. The statute does not say that.
That's
Let's let the legislative knowledgeable people debate.
what I read.
If you go down to Roman numeral 2,
Do you see where it's talking? Paul has a response. Go ahead, Paul.
When we spoke to legal counsel brought it up to us that we had to bring it forward to the town council in a public hearing for the town council to accept the establishment of the revolving fund. And then we had to move it to the warrant for the town's people to vote whether or not they want to establish a revolving fund, just like they had a vote to establish the SB2, just
Okay.
like they had a vote to establish other items.
you're right, because if rereading it, okay, it says by the board or body having control over the finances of a political subdivision. That's not us.
But that's not what the agenda reads, the
Well,
request form reads.
What the agenda reads
It's a public hearing.
is just, we're going to take care of that during the public hearing, okay? And so this is the opportunity to put that out and talk about it, and then to take our action, which is required in here, that it be moved to the warrant.
But it doesn't,
It's not listed that way.
correct, because based on everything that I've read tonight, in what was prepared in the packet, I'm operating and functioning under the premise that we have jurisdiction to act. Well,
To
jurisdiction's not the right word, but we have authority to act on
And
this.
then establish a
And
revolving
establish it.
fund,
No,
but
no,
it
not
has to
put-
be approved by the public.
But I'm only finding out about that now. It wasn't clear to me when I read,
Dan?
The whole act of this we're doing is establishing the procedure. A motion will be made, and another motion will be going to the ballot. I thought I'm
I get
confused
what
that
you're
you're
saying, but is
confused,
there
I
any
guess.
kind of a downside to
I mean,
having
everything
a
we're
public
speaking and doing
hearing
right
and
now is an
having
action.
having a discussion and then
no, I'm not,
forward?
no. What I'm saying is that usually if there's,
Be nice.
thank you, Madam Chair.
Bill, your point, I think that's valid, is it's not mentioned in the description for consideration for a warrant article.
Correct.
Okay. And I think that should be duly noted.
Well, and I'm asking Bill in all seriousness, is there a concern about that you think we might be missing something as a result of that tonight?
I just was confused,
Okay.
Okay.
okay? In full disclosure, I was confused. I'm thinking we have the ability to act on this. I'm thinking I'm going to vote either yes or no to approve this. That once I,
Without
The
putting it on the warrant.
establishment
and
of,
there was no mention that my vote's going, that ultimately the voters are going to have a final say, because when I read the legislative intent regarding political subdivision, I'm thinking,
Right.
like what Tom corrected me on, I'm thinking I have say.
but you do understand the difference now.
I do understand the
Yeah,
difference.
I do too.
I was confused.
Could have been clearer on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, any other, yes, Dan?
So as one of us make a motion, we would want to make sure that we add and propose to send to the warrant article. I mean, that
To
would have to
the-
be part of the motion as well.
There's a motion already done on
Yep.
the other page there.
So it's falling in that language. Okay, all right.
Okay, yes, the language. You had a couple of questions, sure.
Thank you. And Matt, you
Jody,
addressed a
for the
couple of
record.
my questions and some of my concerns. One of, and I want to understand, Eileen, because I was thumbing through the policy trying to find where you were talking about. If you could just read that sentence for me one more time, because I had concern about the authority paragraph that you weren't mentioned in there. Would you mind just telling me? Is that okay, Nancy, if she?
Go right ahead,
All right.
yes.
It is under authority.
Yep.
On this page,
here?
the last sentence.
Okay.
It said, the last sentence of the first paragraph. The treasurer of the town of Merrimack shall have control of all monies in the fund and shall only remit the equal amount upon direct order by the Director of Parks and Recreation, subject to the approval of the town council. And I'm not mentioned anywhere in here.
Okay.
So I would like it to be under the direct order of the town manager, subject to the approval of the town council.
Okay, and I would prefer that language
Yeah.
also. And then I had
I've
another
spoken to Matt
question,
about
the
that
very
as well.
last sentence, where it says, after creation of such recreation revolving fund, the monies in such fund shall not need further town approval to be expended. I don't understand what that means.
Every time you want to expend the money, you don't have to come back here,
Right.
but you could be approved by the town manager.
Okay,
Because if it's not listed as an expenditure in the budget specifically, they can't expend the money. But if it's in a, am I getting this, Harry? If they have the money, they should be able to expend it before, without having to come before the council, but it has to be oversought and approved by the town manager.
okay, all right.
Is that accurate?
Okay, I wanted your oversight in there somewhere. And then the other issue that you addressed for me, Matt, was the year-to-year accumulation, because I had some concerns about how that would work. And so my understanding is it's written right here in the policy that the expenditure of any surplus would come before the town manager and the town council before being expended.
Yes.
I just think that's a really good idea of transparency and make sure that everybody knows what the money's being spent for. So that will be right in the policy, right? Okay. Section 5. Year-to-year accumulation, the second sentence in the paragraph.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so that helps me a little bit. And then the other thing I don't know, is this the appropriate time to discuss the process for implementing new programs? Is now the time?
Probably not,
Okay,
right? That should be up as a separate agenda item, I
okay,
would think.
all right, thank you.
Because this is really just for the revolving account.
Could I ask her what you mean? Because
Well, because Matt, and we had discussed, we touched on this a little bit during our budget discussions, and Matt had talked about all the different programs, and again, it's great, and I don't want to squash anyone's enthusiasm, but we had talked about some of them biting off more than they could chew, and I just wanted to make sure there was some kind of a process safety net, especially because Matt also mentioned possibly giving that authority to the Parks and Rec Committee at some point in time. I would strongly oppose that, especially in the beginning when we're first getting used to this fund. I would recommend that we have that process come before the town council in a public session. Possibly after we've been doing this for years and years and years, we might get comfortable with it and then do something like that. And I spoke to this too at the budget, the after-school programs, the childcare programs, the school vacation weeks. I have concerns about those.
Okay.
So, because I think that's a lot more than what a Park and Rec department is really, along the lines, I know you do summer camp, and I get that, but that's still, it's a different type of program. So if that process in itself, if that information came before the town council, I would just be more comfortable with it. That's where I'm going with that.
Just-
Bill,
Go ahead.
in relationship to her?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Just, there are many other communities where the Park and Rec Department does run that after-school program. It's not done here, and some of the surrounding towns may not do it here, but in a bunch of other places, they do. That's
That would be
that's
part
where
of
they
the-
decided. So that's
that
one
would
of
be
those
part of the
things that we
discussion.
would, that the council and the department and the corrections.
Right, and that's fine, but I just think
Yeah.
a program such as that, when it's first being implemented, the governing body should be involved in the discussion. That's all I'm saying.
And the parameters.
Correct. Thank you.
Bill?
It's a clarifying question back to the policy on page 1, in the second paragraph, under authority. Under the last sentence in the second paragraph, beginning with indirect cost,
Yeah.
you list a variety of indirect costs. I was wondering if you could explain director salary allocation expenses for me.
Right now, under summer camp, approximately $35,000 is allocated, comes out of revenues from the summer camp, goes towards paying my salary. So I put that in there anticipating that even though we're moving summer camp over to a revolving fund, that's still going to occur.
Okay.
And if it doesn't, even better, but I assumed that it would, so I wanted to make sure that it was specifically listed.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have a clarification question as well.
Sure.
There's a caucus over there. My question's related to, the motion really has to do with the establishment of the revolving
Yes.
account, and therefore, and then going to the warrant. But this is a policy here. So does an additional motion have to do with the adoption of a policy as revised? You were caucusing, you didn't hear me. Did you?
I'm thinking about that. I have 2 seconds?
Absolutely.
The question was asked about the director's salary allocation. And what happens with the director's salary allocation, as in most funds, even with the outside details for the police department and wastewater treatment plant, we have an administrative allocation. And just so happens in Matt's department of Parks and Rec, there's only 2 people in that department that salaries get allocated for. It's his secretary, which we take during the summer months, and we take 40 hours of her time during the summer because she's stock, locked, and barreled into the day camp, and we move her salary for those
Proportional.
12 weeks, full amount for those 12 weeks into the day camp. Well, with Matt, because the day camp isn't just for 12 weeks for Matt, because Matt's right now planning next year's day camp, and we're talking about it and things of that sort. So we take an allocation of his salary. And because we take an allocation of his salary in the general fund, and we've been running the Parks and Rec summer day camp as a quasi-revolving fund for the most part. We call it self-supporting funds, where the day camp money comes in, he sees how much revenue he has for the year, he does his expenditures so he doesn't overexpend the day camp line. So that comes in. It all comes into the general fund. And what happens with Matt is that his salary for this day camp line, because we break it out separately, we take a portion of his salary based on a calculation that we've been using for wastewater treatment for at least 20 years from what I understand. And police outside detail, for 12 years that I've been here, we've been doing this allocation. So we take the same allocation for Matt and we bring that over, and we bring a portion of his salary into the day camp. Well, if we go to this revolving fund now, which is a totally separate fund and is really a fund that's of itself, if he has zero money in his checkbook, wages, expenditures do not get paid. He has to have money to pay out the expenditures. So by taking his salary, we need to allocate his salary dollars now in this fund, but we need to state it as an indirect cost of a program of this revolving fund, because not 100% of his time or money is going to be into this revolving fund. He's still going to have his Parks and Rec department salary in the general fund and in Department 13. I hope that makes it a little bit clearer of what's going on with this. You got to think of this, even though it's not a separate checkbook, it is a separate checkbook. And that's why we have to keep all the money funded and put where in its right bucket.
Isolated out.
Now, to
How
answer your
about-
question about a policy,
Because a policy vote,
before we go on, I have a question on this.
off that, go ahead.
So if you're using the fund, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, please, if you're using the fund to offset salaries for both the secretary and for Matt, is that correct?
Mhm.
So is it fair to say that healthcare and contributions to his retirement are kept separate from the fund, or are they included in this?
They're included in the allocation. The allocation isn't just a direct salary. It's based on the total. There's a lot of different steps that are made and a lot of different things we look at. We look at his total budget versus the total budget of the day camp. We do a percentage of that. We do his percentage of his allocation of time. We do a percent of his allocation of revenue. There's several steps that we break out when we do this administrative allocation. It isn't just dollar for dollar salary. It includes all his benefits for that time period.
Eileen?
I just want to say that it is a long-established practice and methodology that is used to do these allocations for each of the funds. So, for instance, some of my salary and some of Paul's salary are allocated, and the finance department for writing out checks and all that kind of thing go over to the wastewater fund and that kind of thing. So there's an administrative cost that we receive in, that the general fund receives in as revenue from these other funds. And it's the same practice and formula for each fund.
So, just using a round number for the sake of argument, $50,000, and somebody's is a Merrimack Town employee, yearly salary is $50,000, and they're coming off the payroll, I'm assuming. Is that correct? No?
They stay on the
That's where
payroll.
the money's coming from to pay the payroll.
But what I'm saying is that if the money's coming from the fund to pay the salary, and let's suppose the fund is paying $5,000, so really we're only funding that salary at $45,000, and the other $5,000 is funded by the fund. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
Yes, but you're looking at it from a net perspective. So his whole salary is shown in the Parks and Recreation Department of the general fund and all his benefits. And then when you look in revenues, you'll see a line that says administrative costs from that fund, from the sewer fund, from the private detail, all the self-supporting funds comes in as revenue. So the net of it is what you're saying, but it's done in a gross basis.
I'm trying to simplify it for myself and for the people that are watching this so that they understand the concept of what it actually is.
Okay.
And unfortunately,
You're correct in what you're saying, is the net amount of what you're saying happens. But it happens as a full expenditure, and then a revenue to offset it, which makes it the same number you're talking about, but it just is gross appropriating, as we always talk. You have to put the whole cost. So if anybody wanted to see what Matt's salary was, they wouldn't have to go picking through the budget to try and find how much he made. They would see it there, it comes into the general fund as revenue from that other fund.
Which is what you're going to see in the budget tonight.
That's right.
Because you're going to see expenditures,
Is that
let's say it's
clear,
staffing
Bill?
salaries, but then you have for example, fees that are paid, or the day camp that's paid, whatever, you're getting revenues. That's offsetting what the salaries are. Is that Yes, Jody.
This is and I asked this question during our budget process because I didn't understand it. So we are doing it with other funds, with
Yes.
other staff
Most of them do,
members.
right.
It's just,
A lot of the financing, right?
All self-supporting funds.
Right.
And the biggest one, for instance, is the sewer fund. So you got to realize that they have their whole staff over there, but they don't have a payroll department, for instance. They don't have anybody who is the
Administrative overhead.
purchasing agent over there. They don't have Sharon's time over there for HR. So Paul has a formula by which he determines how much of his time and how much of my time and how much of the Public Works Director's time are allocated to that fund. So again, the point really is, when I used to be an auditor, I used to have to go to each fund to find out how much, I used to have to go to 4 or 5 funds to find out how much the Public Works Director made, because it'd be, part of it'd be in the general fund, and part of it'd be in the sewer fund, and part of it'd be in another fund. But here, we put them all in one place so everyone can see it, and then they just, the services that they provide to another fund come in to revenue in the general fund.
Yes, Dan.
Can I be clear? Matt's salary, the 2 chiefs' salary, Tim's salary, they're all derived from the same thing. They're all derived from taxpayer dollars in the town of Merrimack. He is a department head, just like the chiefs and just like everybody else. That's all there is. This is
Some of the cost is defrayed
but that doesn't have.
by revenues that come in
That's
the
right.
various parts.
That's right. But the difference is he's still a department head paid
That's right.
with his salary comes out of taxpayer funds. And now this is a great accounting move to take proceeds from programs out of the general fund and put it in its
offset
own fund. So everybody back home, we may not have enough time, so we could say it as often as we can. This is a great ballot question, and I hope people don't get confused of what the ballot question's all about. It's not
Right.
generating any more tax revenue for Parks and
Correct.
Recreation. It is strictly a
It's
solid
increasing efficiency.
increasing efficiency in an accounting move that is well practiced to help these programs be standing alone. So, thank you.
I haven't got the answer, however, related to, go ahead.
Policy.
Related to the policy.
Correct. It's a chicken-egg kind of deal, and I hate to say
I
it that way.
No, I totally
Because
understand.
you could
It
approve the
has to be
policy
approved,
tonight,
That's right.
and then the
My
vote
suggestion
goes,
was going to be to table the approval of this for future meeting.
the policy portion of it,
Correct.
till April after the
After the
election.
vote.
After the vote, to see if it passes. If it passes, then you come back,
And it should be a very short
Short,
item because we've
uh,
already reviewed it.
and that would be the easiest way to do this. And if it doesn't need to be, doesn't
Right,
come
if it
forward,
doesn't
it needs to be,
pass, then it's moot.
it comes back, and you have another chance to look at the policy to answer
Yep.
some of Jody's other questions
Yep.
about
More detail.
more detail for those things in April.
Perfect. Okay, yep.
So tonight, you just need a motion moving,
To establish a recreation revolving fund as authorized by RSA 35-B:2, and to designate the Director of Parks and Recreation an agent of the fund.
and to move
Excuse
it.
me, Town Manager. Yes, it still should be in here.
In that motion, does it need to be moved to the warrant, or are we going to do that after?
Within the motion. So
Okay.
designate the Town Manager an agent of the fund and move to the warrant. So moved?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jody, motion made by Jody, and seconded by Tom Mahan. Yes. I was just sort of, let's go. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. 5-0-0. Okay, Matt. And we'll see you again once it's passed and you come back and. Absolutely.
Because
Eileen.
we got delved into some detail here, I don't want people to be confused.
Right, which is what Dan-
It's appropriate, it's absolutely appropriate to ask all these questions. And I think that all the answers to those questions will come up as you develop your policy. But the point of the revolving fund is to allow for flexibility in establishing taxpayer-paid programs. So it has nothing to do with the tax rate. What it is a bunch of people want to do a program, they give us the money, we pay to have it done. So it's for the benefit of the taxpayers. It allows us to think on our feet a little bit, so that if an opportunity comes up and the public wants to do things, and we can help facilitate that for them, without making a profit, because that's what we're here for. That's what the fund is for.
Bottom line.
Yes,
And
to
don't let the
offer
other
more
discussions
recreation,
confuse you.
offer more recreation programs to the public that will be paid by the ones that want to use them.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, the next public hearing is going to be about the proposed
Oh,
municipal.
you didn't close it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did close it.
You did?
Yeah.
Sorry.
See, this is really
Oh.
unusual. I'm the one who's usually confused.
16
Tonight
hours.
it's
I'm
his
still
turn.
not recovered from 16 hours at the polls.
I
on
know,
Tuesday.
you and me both. Hey, wait, you didn't do the parking lot duty. Anyway, so, public hearing proposed municipal 2016-17 operating budget and warrant articles. I'm going to be presenting the budget, and Eileen's going to be called upon to comment on the net non-union proposal. And then Tom is going to present the particulars of the collective bargaining agreement. And having said that, I'm going to move myself down there. You're just gonna have to move in. I don't know, I think she's afraid to join me. Ooh, this is a low seat.
You can move it up.
That's all right, I feel like a little kid. Hi there, my name is Nancy Harrington. Thank you for listening. This is unusual being on this side of the... Okay. In front of you, you're going to see the information of the budget that has already been approved from the January 25th budget meeting. This whole presentation, not only mine, but we'll get into the collective bargaining agreements, are going to be in the webpage for full review to the public. I'm not going to go line by line. It would be insulting to everybody. But what I'm going to do is highlight as we go through the different slides regarding the appropriations and expenditures. Next slide, please. Okay, this is basically a summary and overview of the appropriation and the revenues. I'm going to be just highlighting certain components of that. As you go through the appropriations, you're going to see capital reserve fund expenditures and self-supporting fund expenditures. These details are going to be much more specific in the following slides. But you're going to note, and I think this is an important point I want to make, is that money does not need to be from the tax rate, because capital reserve funds is already money we have. It's our savings account. But we are making decisions about how we're going to spend it. And that is going to be specified in future slides as well. Self-supporting funds is money that we get revenues from. For example, the sewer. So even though it's reflected, for example, the $31 million in 2015-16 and the $34 million in the 16-17, almost $9 million of that has to do with that money not needing to come from tax money, okay? And I just wanted to be able to highlight that. And under the revenues, again, because you're spending it, you have to reflect where you're getting the money from. And that's where the revenues come in. Bottom line is, if you look at the very bottom on what would you call that, violet color, this budget reflects, thank you, a 1.6% increase, which is translated into 9 cents. And if you learn to move to the left, assistant, present tax rate is $5.49, and with this 9 cent increase, it was proposed to be $5.58. It's important also to note that this excludes any changes as a result of collective bargaining agreement warrant articles. Yes, Dan?
I hate to interrupt you. That 9 cents sometimes throw people off to say that 9 cents per $1,000
Thank you.
evaluation. Because sometimes, you raised our taxes 9 cents.
That's
Just to make
absolutely
sure what we mean when we say whether it's 9 cents or any increase, that 9 cents is per
Per
$1,000 of your valuation of your house.
that is correct.
Thank you.
And so it would be the $5.58 per 1,000. Correct. Okay, the next slide has to do with obviously items that affect the tax rate.
And this is really taking out those self-supporting funds and the capital reserve funds so that you really know exactly what your taxes are being raised for. One thing I just want to highlight, the capital reserve fund deposits. Assistant, there you go. There is a slight increase to the left. You can see $1,446,000 under the 15-16, and now it's gone up to $1.6 million. The bottom line is the appropriations have gone up a total of, in terms of money, $611,701, which we're rounding around in future tables as $612,000. You're gonna hear 612 a couple of times, so I want you to know where that comes from. Okay, under the revenues, I just want to highlight one other thing out. Under the general fund insurance rebate, as you can see, it was $315,000 this year. Because the health trust rebate was last year, it can't be reflected this year. So that's why there is a dramatic decrease in that revenue this year. Okay. Bottom line, we get still down to the same issue. $260,552 is the amount of money that has to be raised by taxes. Again, reflecting a 9 cent per thousand increase in the tax rate. Again, 549 to 558. Okay, I told you we were going to get into details. You can read this as quickly as I, and I'm not going to bore you with that. We've already discussed all of these things during the budget meetings. I just want to highlight basically one thing. In this page, there are 3 slides, of this, is the overtime in the fire department of $97,000. And we spent quite a lot of time discussing, reviewing, and discussing this item. The next slide has to do with, again, a continuation of the expenditure increases and decreases. What I want to highlight here is an increase in capital reserve deposits of $166,000. That is going to be important to remember, because in a future slide, there are going to be details as to what is reflected in that $166,000. If I'm going too fast, guys, slow me down. Sure, I'm seeing no. The third and last page having to do with the increase or decrease has to do with staffing. We also had a discussion, the big one here, at 2 different things. 53rd week of payroll, $225,000. That had to do with every 6 or 7 years is the 53rd week, and we are taking that out of the capital fund balance, the fund balance. So the total expenditures are $612,000. Now, at the very bottom, you're going to see non-union, hello.
Sorry, Nancy. Do you mind just going back to the
Previous page?
The second page, which was the one that showed that $611,000? Just to kind of, yeah.
There it is.
There it is
remember
right
I
there.
said it rounded around?
Yes, and so what you were just explaining was the list of all those things come to that $612,000.
Those
which
are the
is
details.
The details, yeah.
Exactly. Yes, Tom?
And I apologize for not picking up on this when we were talking about it. Going to your second page of the budget overview of expenditures, even though it's a small amount of money, $5,000,
Is this the correct one, the adult community?
Yes.
Okay.
The last rest cemetery appropriation is new
Okay.
this year. To cover the maintenance cost for town.
The town tomb,
Town tomb.
the
okay.
town tomb in the front area of Last Rest Cemetery,
Okay.
where there's a lot of town early settlers burials there, so it's the town portion of the cemetery.
Which is different than previous budgets.
We've never had one.
Right.
Never had that before. So.
Right. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so now I'm going to pass the baton to Eileen, because she's going to talk about the net non-union pay increase of $50,000. You want to do it from there?
I'm just going to do it from here. I wanted to give you kind of an explanation of the philosophy behind this and behind contract negotiations in general. As you know, we had 6 union contracts before us, which Tom is going to be going over in the next warrant articles that are discussed. But this year was a year where we were trying to make some very significant changes to health insurance, and that was one of our main goals. And so all of the union contracts, as well as the non-union, I am proposing to change their health insurance from no deductible to a $1,000, $3,000 deductible, which is a huge change and a very big savings, as you can see. So I'm proposing to change the health insurance. And again, the reason for it's so important to talk about health insurance is because health insurance is something that you can't really control the costs of. So you want to try and manage the cost of health insurance, and by having a $1,000, $3,000 deductible, as they say, the employee now has skin in the game, and they need to make decisions as to what they want to do with. It's not carte blanche where you can just go to the hospital or to the doctor for everything. You need to make some clear personal decisions about whether you should do something. So anyway, that is the intent of that is to, number one, save money in the beginning, but also to change the way that people look at their health insurance and use their health insurance. And hopefully, in the end, not only will it save money in the initial premiums, but will continue to reap more savings as people start changing the way that they use their health insurance. So I just think that that's a really important point for people to understand. So I'm also proposing a 5% raise for the non-union employees. The non-union employees are the department heads and anyone, most of the people in this building, the wastewater treatment plant staff, again, department heads and media. There's a total of 59 employees. And the reason for the 5% raise is because these employees have not had a raise in 5 years except for a $1,500 raise that they received in 2012-13. And the other reason why it's 5% is because we're asking them to make an enormous change in their health insurance, and unlike the union contracts that have several successive years where we're offering them an increase each year, this group we can only offer 1 year because the council votes on this each year. So I feel very strongly about this. It brings our department heads and non-union staff members up to competitive rates, and they've waited a long time for a raise and will be making a very big change in their health insurance. So I ask that you support this. And this money has already been included in the budget.
Yeah, the total. So you don't have to do a separate vote on that. Okay, if we can move back to the budget. As it says, increased costs are only part of the story. these, I want to highlight, this is the money that we do not have to get from taxpayers, because this is revenue from other sources, and that is a total of $352,000. Sort of major ones have to do with the motor vehicle permits, $325,000, and the insurance, for example, the insurance rebates, $300,000. So again, this helps offset the appropriations. Is that accurate?
Yes. We want to talk about the use of fund balance for the 53rd.
Oh, thank you. Again, this is use of the fund balance and pay for the 53rd week. Again, for the payroll, and that comes up with the fund balance. It's not anything that has to be raised by taxes. Thank you, Paul. Okay, the next one's really busy, and that's the advantage of having this on the website is the public. We've all discussed this. We as council know the individuals, but for the public, I'm sure you cannot see this on your TV screen if you're watching, but it will be on the website. You'll be able to review. I just want to highlight a couple of things. Under road infrastructure, the Sauhegan River Trail is $586,000. However, if you look down at the bottom of the page, this includes an 80% federal match from the Transportation Alternative Program funds for $436,000. Okay. Now, I think before I was involved with all of this, I had a different, that's what a little word I wanted to be able to say to the public. Even though it's $586,000 and that's going to be in the budget, $436 of this is coming from a grant, 80%. So that the difference is what has to be raised by taxes. That's an important thing to understand. Yes, Tom?
The other thing with this is that, as we had originally envisioned this going on, in conjunction with Chamberlain Bridge work,
Yes.
this is going to be less expensive.
Yeah.
So we're going to
Totally.
save on that because of combining the projects.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to save the town. I don't know, how much was it? $30,000? About $200,000?
That
Yeah,
will
okay.
save in the future project.
Right.
The other one I want to highlight is the bridge replacement, Bedford Road, $2,727,500. That includes 80% state matching funds from the state bridge aid for $2,182,000. Again, that $2 million from the state, it has to be on the budget because we're going to spend it. But we don't have to get that money from the taxes, from the tax rate. So if you look at those two items, it's almost $3 million, and much less of that is from tax rate. Most of it's from the grant and from matching funds. Okay? Budget highlights for capital reserve funds. This is basically what we're projecting we're going to be needing to purchase for the various departments. We're planning for the future, and basically this is what we're going to add to our savings account. That's what a capital reserve fund is for. Again, this information has been previously presented and reviewed. And again, that magic $166,000 from the previous, remember I said to highlight and remember, that is the summary of the capital reserve deposits. Last but not least, important budget dates. Deliberative session is on Thursday, March 10th at 7 p.m. in the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School All-Purpose Room. And the annual voting day is Tuesday, April 8th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School, 28 Babusick Lake Road. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move back to my seat because I have to do the public hearing now. Unless a person wants to come up and sit beside me, they could do that. No,
Can do that too?
we could do that. So allow me to move back to my seat, and Tom's getting ready. He goes, oh, there he is. Because he's going to be doing as soon as we do the public hearing and make a vote, then we're going to be starting the collective bargaining units, and that's why Tom's here.
revolving accounts, now it's revolving chairs. Okay, I would like to, and this is just for the budget now, I would like to open the public hearing at 8:33. Look at the crowd. Seeing none.
Madam Chair, I move the municipal
Whoa, I
operating.
gotta close the public hearing.
Oh,
Why don't I
thought
make
you
it 8:33, I'm gonna close it at 8:34. Now, one question. Does the council wish to modify the already approved budget? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the municipal operating budget, in the amount of $34,273,625 to the warrant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Bill Boyd, seconded by Dan Dwyer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. 5-0-0. Now let me just, let's do a little housekeeping here, help in seeing how we're going to do this. Tom's going to present each collective bargaining unit one at a time. Then we're going to open a hearing, close a hearing, take a vote, and then go to the next, because we have to keep track of all these. Okay, Tom, go for it.
Thank you. As you see here, we have 6 collective bargaining units in town, and this year we are presenting 5 additional warrant articles for the 5 agreements that have been negotiated. The first of these agreements is for the supervisors for the police and fire. You can see the designation of the collective bargaining unit above it, and the general terms of the agreement that we have here. All of the agreements that we're going to be talking about tonight are for 3 years. They'll run from July 1, 2016 to June 30, 2019. In this particular contract, which I believe covers, 12 people? 17. Effective July 3rd, a wage adjustment of 3% to remain competitive for retention and recruitment in these job classifications. We found that over the years, these had gotten considerably out of kilter with the towns of comparable size and duties. The second part of this is also a wage increase of 3% on July 3rd of 2016. Effective July 1 of 2016, the new medical plan, new health plan, which includes which adds a prescription mail component, and the deductibles that we talked about before for the non-union employees is $1,000 per member and $3,000 per family per year. Effective July 2nd, 2016, there will be 2017 rather. There will be another wage increase of 3%, and in the 3rd year of the contract, there will be a wage increase of 3%. The employee life insurance also changes from a flat $10,000 to a one-times base yearly wage. This is more in keeping with what is offered in many other places and what we agreed to. The employee accidental death and dismemberment coverage is also a change from a flat amount of $10,000 to one-time the annual salary. Here's the cost impact in the first year of this contract. Wages are $91,516. The health insurance, there's a savings of almost $46,000. And the increased cost for the life insurance is $2,358. So the total cost is $47,896. Next one.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry.
now that's, okay. So we are done with that. This is for, okay, we need to open the public hearing for this. And that's 8:37. Seeing none, I get to put at least a minute on, right? I will close the public hearing at 8:38. And I will accept a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Merrimack and AFSCME 93 Local 3657 in the amount of $47,896 to the warrant.
Motion made by Tom Mahan, seconded by
Second.
Jody Valencourt. All those in favor say aye. No, because it's Well,
Question.
question, yes.
Tom, on the chart, I was expecting, like, when we had seen some previous work, the tax implications.
I've got a summary page at the end that puts them all together.
Okay,
Is that,
thank you.
okay. It's just, we can't negotiate, I mean,
Yeah.
I wanted hesitated because it's negotiations are already done. Okay. But that question's a clarification. Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those against? 4, 1, 0. Dan Dwyer in opposition. Okay, next one, Tom?
The next one involves the New England Police Benevolent Association. This is for dispatchers and office staff of the police department. Again, this is a 3-year contract, and effective July of 2016, there'll be a wage increase of 3%. The same changes for the health plan that we saw. There's not a mail-in prescription component to this contract. It's just a change to the overall deductibles for individuals and for families. The same 3% for 2017 and 2018, and it adds a total of $2,000 per year for tuition assistance.
How many employees on this contract?
Total of 12.
12, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to open the public
Here
hearing.
we have the cost impact for the first year, wages $15,630,
Sorry.
health insurance $20,000, a reduction of $20,816, and the addition of the tuition reimbursement for $2,000. So the net is a reduction of $3,186.
There we go. Okay, I'm going to open at 8:39. That's what it says. Looking around. Anyone? Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing at 8:40. Motion.
Madam Chair, I move the collective bargaining agreement between the Town of Merrimack and NEPA 112 in the amount of a negative $3,186 to the warrant.
Motion made by Bill Boyd, seconded by
Second.
Tom Mahan. Are there any further questions? You're going to be getting that impact later, right? On this one, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None? 5-0-0. Next one?
Next one is the Teamsters Local 633, the supervisory and clerical employees of the Public Works Department. How many in this one? 11. Again, a 3-year contract, same wage increase for the first year, same change in the health plan as we saw in the previous contract, and then 3% for the out years of 2017, 2018. The total cost impact for the first year is wages of $22,461 and a reduction of health insurance of $18,683 for a total cost for year one of a net $3,776.
Okay. Open at 8:41. Anyone? I want to say Ferris.
Bueller. Bueller.
Okay, I'm closing it at 8:42.
Dwyer.
Yeah. Absolutely. Question?
Could we just say how many employees each one of these contracts includes when, because people have asked that question.
This one has 11.
11, thank you, Paul.
And then to clarify off of Councilor Valencourt, the AFSME 93, how many?
17.
17, thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move the collective bargaining agreement between the Town of Merrimack and Teamsters Local 633 in the amount of $22,000. No, this is the wrong one. I'm sorry. $3,778.
Second?
Okay. Motion made by Tom Mahan, second by Jody Valencourt. Okay, any other
So
questions?
that number that we have on this sheet is incorrect, right?
That's just what, that's why
Okay.
I was looking like,
Yeah,
what?
thank you.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 4-1-0. Dan Dwyer opposed. Okay, next.
The next one involves the ASME 93 Local 2986. This is the laborers in the Public Works Department. Again, a three-year contract. It's a little bit more involved in this one because of the number of employees in this one. 40. Okay. They took a wage increase of 1%, effective July 3rd of 2016. And then effective January 1 of 2017, there's a wage increase of 3%. Also effective on January 1 of 2017, the deductibles per individual and per family per year go to what the other policy, the other plans have. Effective July 2nd, or effective in 2017, it's 3%, 2018 is 3%. There's an increase for what they call the wing rate from $1 to $2 per hour, an increase for the Saturday and Sunday differential, time differential from 50 cents to 75 cents per hour. So, and finally, the other change in here is a meal allowance of $10 for every 14 continuous hours of work during a winter event or emergency. So we have the cost impacts for year one, wages $41,951, steps, because it's one of the contracts that has steps, $78.24. The wing rate increase would amount to $26.23. The meal allowance would be $43.93. The Saturday Sunday differential with $3,251, and the insurance savings would be a reduction of $48,576 for a net cost to the town in the first year of $11,466.
Thank you, Tom. I'll open a public hearing at 8:45. Excellent.
Jim Ferrer, 7 Marion Lane. So, what is wing rate? Just out of curiosity.
Good.
On all our major dump trucks, the big dump trucks, the 6-wheel and 10-wheel dump truck, we have an additional wing plow
Okay.
that comes down.
Gotcha.
When they're plowing with that additional wing plow, it's a little more difficult than just plowing with the front plow. So it takes more expertise and challenge to be plowing with the wing down. And when they plow with their wing down, they get an additional $1 or $2 during a winter storm.
Okay. And then my second question, are they getting a 6% wage increase in 2017 then? Right? Reading this?
No.
3% in January and then 3% in July would be 6% next.
It's a 1% July 16, and then a 3% in July 17.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Our fiscal year runs from July
Gotcha.
to
Yep,
June.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm glad you asked that, though. If you interpret it that way,
sorry.
then it was a good time to clarify.
Well, this is the second AFSCME local. There's the first one, and there
Which is
was a 3% and a 3%.
Different.
in July.
Okay. Seeing anyone else? I'll close the public hearing at 8:47. Any questions from the council? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Merrimack and AFSCME 93 Local 2986 in the amount of $11,466.
Seconded.
Motion made by Tom Mahan, seconded by Bill Boyd. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 4-1-0. Dan Dwyer in opposition. And last one.
And the final contract involves the firefighters and paramedics of the fire department. Again, this is a 3-year agreement. and is a little bit more involved in it. Effective July 1 of this year, we removed the paramedic stipend and replaced that with an initial $3,500 or $1.60 is added to their base rate pay for firefighter, paramedic, and master firefighter, paramedic. Glad I don't have to say that fast. Effective January 1 of 2017, the same 3% increase that we've seen in the other contracts. Effective January 1 of 2017, the deductibles of $1,000 per member and $3,000 per family per year. Same 3% in 2017 and 2018. And in here, there's a effective July 1 of 2016, there's an increase in the maximum short-term disability insurance weekly benefit from 70% of base up to $600 per week to 70% of base up to $700. 24 members in the unit. The cost impact in the first year, wages $25,979. Steps in the contract are $49.31. Paramedic premium is $19,018. The health insurance reduction is $20,664 for a net cost of $29,264.
Okay, I'd like to open a public hearing at 8:49. Seeing none, I'd like to close it at 8:50.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
I would move the collective bargaining agreement between the Town of Merrimack and the IAFF Local 2904 in the amount of $29,264 to the warrant.
Motion by Bill Boyd, seconded by
Second?
Jody Valencourt. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 410. Dan Dwyer in opposition.
Now, another item that we've been trying to get for 4 or 5 years was a move to a biweekly payroll. And it was a thing that in collective bargaining jargon is called a Me Too clause. So several of the unions initially had said, we'll do it if they'll do it. We now have agreement from all 6 bargaining units to go to a biweekly payroll, and the Finance Department will undertake that sometime after July 1st of 2016, so that we're only processing that every other week. So here is the effect on the tax rate for these bargaining agreements. As you can see, each of the physical impacts on the left, on the middle column, total $89,218, and the attributable change in the charge that would be applied to the tax rate would be 3 cents. So 3 cents of whatever the tax rate is would be attributable to the settlements that we have here if these contracts are approved by the voters.
Jody?
Thank you. I just, again, wanted to thank Eileen and Sharon for all the hard work, and the union and non-union members who came forward and agreed to substantial health care concessions. I think that's a win. Hopefully it's a win-win for everybody. It's definitely a win for the taxpayers. The other thing about health care concessions is you will continue to see savings in your health care costs in future years. So it won't just be this year that we'll see a savings. And it's cost avoidance too, because every year, that's the one thing we know, is our health insurance premiums go up. So if we go to a less expensive, high deductible plan, then our increase will be less the next year than it would have been if we had stayed with the plan that we're at now. So I just wanted to thank everyone for the concessions. I appreciate it.
And I'm not sure if this is appropriate, but I'll find out after I say it. This is really avoiding a problem with the Affordable Care Act, too, in terms of Cadillac plan.
Yes, that was something that initially we were targeting, because our health insurance plans have gotten so costly because of the richness of the plans, that they were already getting up to the point where we were going to be penalized by 40% for any amount over the cost of a Cadillac tax, and we were getting very close to that amount. Now that's been pushed off to 2020 and beyond, so it's not, the Cadillac tax issue isn't immediately looming,
Right. And
but
who
the
knows what's gonna happen.
issue of reducing the cost of health insurance is of critical importance.
I also want to make a point that Eileen and Paul, I don't know if Sharon, no, and Sharon, were involved in negotiating these, and that was a lot of work. And that saved us a lot of money as well, so let's acknowledge that. So thank you to all of you. And thank you for the union members who agreed to it. There was a lot of hard work and concessions on both sides. Okay, before I leave this agenda item, I just want to make sure on the agenda it said proposed issuance of debt, there are none. Petition bonds, there are none. And there are no other petition warrant articles. Okay, so that finishes that public hearing. Okay, legislative updates from state reps. Seeing none. Town managers report.
I don't have one of those either.
Wow. And we have no consent agenda, and we have no old business. New business we've already done. We had the Eagle Scout presentation earlier. Okay, Paul and Eileen. Review of the 16-17 default budget. The town council will review this default budget. So go for it.
The default budget is statutory in nature by the state for all SB 2 districts, which we are because we have a ballot vote. Basically, SB 2 means we have a ballot vote. So in the traditional deliberative session form of government, people would hammer out what their operating budget would be, and there would be motions to move it this way or that way, and at the end of the day, you knew what your operating budget would be. But since you're going to ballot vote, you need to have what they call default budget calculation, a default budget number, because if the people vote no to your operating budget, there's nothing to fall back on to say, okay, this is your budget for the year. So legislation got together and said, okay, now you need to do a default calculation. So what the default calculation does, it takes into account your last year's operating ballot and any union contracts that were approved. In our case, our voted budget is $31,507,148. Then it lets you to add and decrease for union benefits that were not in when you don't have unions that are in contract. And as you can see earlier tonight, we have 6 unions that are not in contract. And the biggest expense on those union contracts are health insurance. So if none of the union contracts passed and the default budget came into play, we still needed that increase in our health insurance to pay for the union. So we're allowed to increase the $31 million by $67,000, which is the cost for the union contract and health insurance in the budget. Then you either have to take out your one-time purchases from the prior year. So last year we had capital reserve fund purchases of $2,907,334. So you have to reduce your operating budget by that amount. And since we do a budget that includes everything, so the taxpayers see everything, transparency, that everything the town is spending to include capital reserves, in the default calculation we have to back that number out because those were spent last year for a specific item, one-time capital purchase. And then next year we have the 53rd week of payroll, which is unusual, which is a one-time purchase forward. And then we have an extra election next year. So we add that in as a one-time unusual purchase. Then they look at debt service. Now that includes both general fund and wastewater. So they take the 15-16 debt, which was $811,000. They subtract it out of the $31 million number. And then they add in your 16-17 debt payment because you have to make that payment no matter what. So, and that was about $1.3 million. So our pluses and minuses throughout comes to a default number of $29,384,969. Looking at the default tax rate comparison versus the current comparison. So there's that number again, $29,384,969.
I've got 385.
There was a change made to
Okay.
include $1,000. There was a change made today when we reviewed it one last time. There was a change that Eileen and I saw that needed to be made, so we made the change.
Thank you.
Then you have to look at because we talk about tax rate, and we look at our tax rate, so we want to see what the default tax rate would be. But you can't take the $18,776,000 revenue number that you saw earlier in the public hearing, because that includes those capital reserve fund purchases. So technically, you got $4 million, $4.3 million in capital reserve fund purchases. You have to back that out of your revenue too, because if you back them out of your appropriations, you need to back them out of your revenue. So that brings the revenue down to $14,470,000. You still have your tax overlay, you still have your exemptions. Your property tax levy would be around $16 million. Divided by the population, the default property tax rate would be about $5.38, which is about a 20-cent differential.
You said population, so
Oh, sorry about that.
that's okay.
So it would be about a 20-cent differential. Looking at where the difference lies is if you take your budget at $34 million, subtract out your capital reserve fund purchases of $4.3 million. If we took those out of our budget now, our budget would be $29,967,125. Subtract that from the default budget, it's about a $582,156 difference, which equals the 20-cent tax rate difference. So that's how we calculate our default tax rate. Any questions?
Can I make a statement? You can tell me if it's accurate or not. If the default tax rate was adopted, the other one was rejected, and this was automatically adopted. The Sauhegan River Trail and the bridge replacement, what would happen to that?
What would happen with that is that since the council is agents to expend, the other reason why we take capital reserve funds out is because the council is agents to expend on all our capital reserve
Correct.
funds.
Correct.
So what would happen with those two is that the department and the town manager, through the town manager, will come back to the council and ask to spend those monies out of those capital reserve funds to do those projects, such as the Bedford Road Bridge and the Sauhegan River Trail. So there would be a separate meeting where you would approve it, additional appropriation on top of what the default budget would be.
Okay.
And that's why we take that capital out. It's because you guys are agents to expend.
Okay. Okay. Yes, Jody?
But I'm trying to understand what we'd be putting into the capital reserve fund with a default budget.
The deposits,
Yes.
that would come back. There would be one meeting or two, if a default budget is enacted, that the town manager would bring back her recommendations to the town council of how to fund the budget within the $29,384,969. So the town manager would be bringing back. We had this situation
Can I just
5 years ago.
do you mind?
When
When I just first got here.
Eileen?
But can I
Yep.
just, to kind of crystallize this a little bit, should the default budget pass, we would be coming before you to ask you to, as agents to expend the capital reserve funds, to allow those expenses as they come throughout the year, and in the amount of 4 million, those two numbers, 4,058,500.
So we'd have to do it item by item.
So you have to
Yeah.
do that, but my point really is that should the default budget pass, or the other budget not pass and the default budget go into place, I would have to come to you with a recommendation of cuts of $582,156.
So there's a possibility too that the non-union employee health concessions that we got that are in the operating budget would go away too.
That would be your decision. Normally what happens is
Okay.
I would give you my recommendation.
But it's a possibility.
Yes.
I would recommend it, but
Right.
it is a
But
possibility,
we
yes.
could lose healthcare concessions
Yes.
too.
Right.
Okay,
And
All
you could
right.
lose your deposits in your capital reserve. Could.
right,
It's a
Right.
possibility.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we need to, any other questions? Okay, yes, Dan?
Just more of a comment, because I know the default budget sometimes has people concerned or a little bit confused. But everything's back on the table, in other words, when, if the town shoots down the warrant article budget at 34 million, everything would come back to us line by line. It would be, all 7 counselors would have a say on putting something in or taking something out at that point.
Right,
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, if there's no other questions, I take a motion to move to the default
Madam
budget
Chair,
to the warrant.
Madam Chair, I move that the 2016-2017 default budget in the amount of $29,384,969 be moved to the warrant.
Motion made by Bill Boyd, second by
Second.
Tom Mahan. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? None. 5-0-0. Okay. Okay, this last item has to do with recommending the various warrant articles. As you know, for the deliberative session, as well, will be on the ballot. Each warrant article will have a parentheses, how many town councils recommended, not recommended. So we have to go through all of them. And I'm sorry, but you have to bear with me because apparently, officially, I have to read this publicly.
Can I
So
just-
bear with me.
Can I just ask a question? Is this the appropriate time for the council members to determine who's going to be the first and second on that? Because Lynn likes to know that.
We are actually going to do that on the 25th,
Okay.
because
never
I'm going
mind.
to get the books ready by the 25th for everybody, so you'll have them. So you can write right in the books who's
okay.
moving it and who's seconding the motion.
Oh, yes, that's
So-
done prior to the deliberative.
Right.
Right. Okay, bear with me, everybody. State of New Hampshire, to the inhabitants of the town of Merrimack in the county of Hillsborough in said state qualified to vote in town affairs. You are hereby notified that the first session deliberative of the annual meeting of the town of Merrimack will be held at the Mastrocola Upper Elementary School's all-purpose room on Babusick Lake Road in said Merrimack on Thursday, March 10th, 2016, at 7 o'clock in the evening for explanation, discussion, and debate of each warrant article. Warrant articles may be amended at this session per RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 4. You are hereby notified that the second session, ballot voting, of the annual meeting of the town of Merrimack will be held on Tuesday, April 8th, 2016, at 7 o'clock in the forenoon for the choice of town officers elected by official ballot to vote on questions required by law to be inserted on the official ballot and to vote on all warrant articles from the first session on official ballot per RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 7. The polling place for the election of town officers and other actions required to be inserted on the ballot will open on said date at 7 o'clock in the forenoon a.m. and will not close earlier than 7 o'clock in the evening. The aforementioned polling place will be as follows: James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School All-Purpose Room, 26 Babusick Lake Road. Article 1 has to do with town officers, so we have nothing to do with that. Article number 2, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $273,625. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $29,384,969, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town or by law. Or the town council may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and Roman numeral 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. So I need a motion
So moved.
to recommend Article 2 as stated.
So moved.
Motion made by Bill Boyd, seconded by
Second.
Tom Mahan. Okay, when you go yea or nay, that will be recommended or not recommended, right? So all those who want to recommend Article 1, please say aye.
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 You said Article 1, it's Article 2.
I'm sorry, thank you. Thank you for the correction. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So it will be recommended 5, recommended 0, not recommended, right? Is that
Yes.
how we post it?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, Article 3, Tom? Since it's a,
Okay. Now, understand that this vote to recommend may be changed after the deliberative session, because we usually meet after the deliberative session to go back through this for the final warrant that will be presented to the voters for the April voting. Okay, Article 3.
and when is that done? Just after the deliberative?
We
Immediately
immediately after the deliberative session.
Immediately after, okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, among all the confusion of them breaking down and everything else.
Okay.
Article 3. Shall the town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in a collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Town Council and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees 93, Local 3657, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. Fiscal year 2016-2017, wage increase $91,516, benefit costs minus $43,620 for a fiscal impact of $47,896. 2017-2018, the fiscal impact would be $46,984, and fiscal year 2018-2019, the fiscal impact would be $48,496. Now, the reason these are included in here is because the state law requires that we provide the costs for the first year is only appropriated, but we're giving fair warning to the voters that this is the cost in the ensuing years, and these don't have to be brought back before them in the last 2 years of the agreement. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $476,896, $47,896. Such sum representing the anticipated increases in salaries and benefits over those of the appropriation at current staffing levels paid in the previous fiscal year. The passage of this article will result in employees covered by the collective bargaining agreement changing their health care to $20 office visit, $10, $25, $40 pharmacy copay, $10, $40, $70 mail-in, and $1,000, $3,000 deductible plan. These savings have been factored into the estimated fiscal impact set forth above. This collective bargaining agreement covers supervisory employees of the fire and police departments.
Okay, I'll accept the motion.
I move to recommend Article 3 as stated.
Tom Mahan, motion, second.
Second?
Jody Valencourt. Okay, all those.
Question?
Yes.
Where it reads in the language 10/25/40 pharmacy copay, it then reads 10/40/70 mail-in. Do we want to add the word pharmacy? Because mail-in standing alone to me sounds kind of nebulous for people that aren't familiar with the differences between pharmacy versus mail-in.
I'm looking for direction.
All I can say, excuse me, Madam Chair, all I can say is this has been vetted by both DRA and legal counsel. and they gave their check on it. No comment, both of them.
And we did explain the differences in there as part of the public hearing process. We'll get to have that opportunity at the deliberative
Okay.
session. So,
Okay, all those who want to recommend, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 4 recommended, 1 opposed. Dan Dwyer in opposition. Article 4.
Article 4, shall the town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in a collective bargaining agreement between the Merrimack Town Council and the New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 112, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. Fiscal year 2016-2017, wage increase of $15,630, a benefit cost of a net reduction of $18,816 for a fiscal impact of a minus $3,186. In 2017-2018, the fiscal impact is an increase of $15,779, and in 2018-2019, the fiscal impact is $16,282. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $0, such sum representing the anticipated increase in salaries and benefits over those of the appropriation at current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year. The passage of this article will result in employees covered by the collective bargaining agreement changing their health care to a $20 office visit, 10, 20, 45 pharmacy copay, 1,000, 3,000 deductible plan. These savings have been factored into the estimated fiscal impact set forth above. This collective bargaining agreement covers dispatchers and office staff of the police department.
Any questions? Okay, could I have a motion, please?
Move Article 4 as read.
Seconded.
Motion made by Tom Mahan, seconded by Bill Boyd. All those in favor of recommending, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, none. 5-0. Article 5.
Article 5, shall the town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in a collective bargaining agreement between the town council and the Teamsters Local 633, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. 2016-17, wage increase of $22,461, benefit cost of a minus $18,683. The total fiscal impact is $3,778. In year 2, 2017-2018, the fiscal impact is $23,137, and in 2018-2019, the impact is $23,864. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,778, such sum representing the anticipated increase in salaries and benefits over those of an appropriation at current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year. The passage of this article will result in employees covered by the collective bargaining agreement changing their health care to a $20 office visit, 10, 20, 45 pharmacy copay, 1,000, 3,000 deductible plan. These savings have been factored into the estimated fiscal impact set forth above. This collective bargaining agreement covers supervisory and clerical employees of the highway, solid waste disposal, wastewater treatment, and equipment maintenance divisions of the Public Works Department.
Motion made by
Madam Chairman, I move Article 5 as read.
Seconded.
Motion made by Tom Mahan, seconded by Bill Boyd. Any questions? None. All those who recommend say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say okay. So it's 4 recommended, 1 opposed, and the opposition is Dan Dwyer. Okay, Article 6.
Article 6, shall the town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in a collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Town Council and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees 93, Local 2986, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. 2016-17, wage increase of $60,042. A benefit cost, a reduction of $48,576 for a total fiscal impact of $11,466. In 2017-2018, the fiscal impact is $33,702, and in 18-19, the fiscal impact is $86,808. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $11,466, such sum representing the anticipated increase in salaries and benefits over those of the appropriation at current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year. The passage of this article resulted in employees covered by the collective bargaining agreement changing their health care to $20 office visit, $10/20/45 pharmacy copay, and the $1,300 deductible plan on January 1, 2017. These savings have been factored into the estimated fiscal impact set forth above. This collective bargaining agreement covers the laborers of the Public Works Department to include highway, wastewater, solid waste, and equipment maintenance divisions.
Motion for Article 6.
Madam Chair, move Article 6 as read to the,
Motion made by Bill Boyd, seconded by
Second.
Jody Valencourt. Okay, all those who recommend say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? 4 recommend, 1 oppose. Dan Dwyer, opposition. Finally, Article 7.
Article 7, shall the town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Town Council and the International Association of Firefighters, Local 2904, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. 2016-17, 49 wage increase, $49,928. Wage and benefit costs minus $20,064 for a total fiscal impact of $29,864. In 2017-18, the fiscal impact is $41,006, and in 2018-19, the fiscal impact is $69,421. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $29,864, such sum representing the anticipated increase in salaries and benefits over those of the appropriation at current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year. The passage of this article will result in employees covered by the collective bargaining agreement changing their health care to $20 office visit, $10/20/45 pharmacy copay, $1,300 deductible plan on January 1, 2017. These savings have been factored into the estimated fiscal impact set forth above. The collective bargaining agreement covers the firefighters and paramedics of the fire department.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, move Article 7 as read.
Motion made by
No,
Bill
we
Boyd.
recommend.
I recommend Article 7, I apologize.
That's right. And seconded by
Second.
Jody Valencourt. Yes.
Just friendly, where it said wage and benefit cost before, it's just going to say benefit cost
Yeah.
to match the other contracts. I noticed that. As
Take out wage.
Take out wage. It's just going to read benefit cost to match the other articles.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of recommending say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 4 recommended, 1 opposed. That Dan Dwyer. Now, I'm making an assumption, but I won't assume anything. Article 8 and Article 9, we have nothing to do with in terms of recommending.
money.
Is that accurate? It's not money related?
There's no money, just Article
Excellent.
8 is the proposed charter amendment by the library to add alternates. That was approved at a meeting in February, in January, and then
Do they need to be read here?
What?
No.
No.
Okay, good.
And then Article 9 is what we talked about tonight about the revolving fund with the change that
Correct.
says town manager as agent of the fund.
Perfect.
And that will be Article 9.
So we're all done with that, right?
We're all done with that. Over the weekend, if everything goes well tomorrow, I'll be sending out a text asking the council come in to sign the warrant and to sign the MS 636, which is basically the state warrant, and the 636 default, which is basically the state default budget, need the council signatures so they can be posted by the last Monday of February. So
Okay, so you'll send a text.
send out a
that
text.
request.
If you don't get it, by late tomorrow afternoon, they'll probably be ready for you by Tuesday afternoon. But you'll get a text letting you know that it's ready for everybody to sign.
Excellent. Okay, next, minutes. Might I just make a statement? I have not had time to read the minutes, so I'm going to be abstaining, whether that makes any difference or not.
Move to table.
Seconded.
Thank you. Move to table the minutes by Tom Mahon, seconded by Bill Boyd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. 500. Thank you, Tom. Comments from the press? I don't see any. Comments from the public? Yes.
Yvette Kauser, 11 Courier Road. Paul, can you check your calendar? Because on the warrant articles, it said April 8th was the voting, and April 8th is a Friday. I don't know if you mean April 12th, which is on the town calendar as the voting day.
It is April 12th.
So I think it was page 1 on that, just to correct. Okay.
So the annual voting day? So please, only make it special. Thank you for catching that.
Good catch, Yvette. Thank you.
Laura and I both caught it. No problem. I
So
want to make sure I'm
correction-
there. So
Well, thank you. Correction to the public, the annual voting day, we previously said it was Tuesday, April 8th. It's not, it's April 12th.
Oh,
All right, comments from the public? Thank you very much. Comments from the council? Yes, Tom?
Yes, I am announcing this evening that I will not be seeking re-election.
Okay. Talk about dropping a bomb.
Well, this is something that's been on my mind for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Most of you have known about it, that I've had that inkling, and that you have asked me repeatedly over the last couple of months whether I was going to run or not, and I have tried to evade you effectively. And in the end, I just need a break. It's just been 10 years here, and I just turned 70 in January, and I've been doing stuff in the town since 1977. So,
Yeah.
you know, and when I was on the budget committee, I wouldn't serve for more than 2 consecutive terms. I would always take a year off or something just to get the break from it, and just to get away from it, and just to get refreshed and out of the way. It's not that I'm not going to do anything around here.
Yeah.
I'm still going to be involved in some capacity, and at this point, I will not be seeking re-election.
Yes, Dan?
I, for one, am very disappointed, Tom. You've been a great mentor since I've been here, and you've always been easy to talk to. More importantly, you've always seemed to have had a lot of the facts when we needed them the most. So, very disappointed to hear the news today. Maybe you'll change your mind. You get 60 days. But thanks for everything you've done. Very much.
Any other comments? Okay, I will entertain a motion. Oh, what, did you do this? I didn't see you. Must have been behind the shelves.
I was going to echo Councilor Dwyer. He used the right word, mentor. And when I joined the council in 2011, Tom certainly acted as a mentor to me as well. And over the last 4.5 years, coming up on 5 years, it's been a privilege, not just a pleasure. It's been a privilege to work with you, Tom, and to learn from you. And I appreciate everything that you've done to make me the best counselor possible here in the community. So I want to publicly thank you. And I am sad that you are choosing not to run for re-election, but I would also be the first one to say you've earned it, and you've got some grandkids that would like to spend some quality time with you as well. I also imagine that you'll be bouncing ham radio waves over to Papua New Guinea at some particular point as well. So
I should be so lucky.
you should be so lucky. So anyway, I'm disappointed, but congratulations, Tom, and thank you again. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
I'll wait for my words of adulation later. Yes, George.
I would like to thank Tom for his service, but I have a question for clarification. Does this mean you're not going to take phone calls?
Well, I'm making an assumption he will accept my text messages in the middle of meetings.
When Yakubov was here, he kept waving this at me. So, you know, we
Right.
can get in touch with you.
All right, yeah, because we do know where you live.
Yeah, that's
Thank
right.
you.
It's not hard.
Conservation Commission, I just wanted to fill you in. We had a meeting, was it the 8th? I'm trying to remember. Our next meeting isn't until the 22nd. We had a meeting on the 1st. But we had Gina, our new alternate member, came and sat at the table. It was great to have a new person there. We actually had a couple of people in the audience come, and they were interested in the subcommittees. So we're definitely generating some interest. We still do have a full-time opening on the Conservation Commission that we really would love to fill, and there are 2 alternate positions open, but I believe that the constant hammering at the public meetings, and I also believe the pipeline has definitely
generated.
had people paying more attention and realizing that there are things that they would like to do to volunteer in support of their town. So we've generated some interest, and thank you, all of you, for supporting the Conservation Commission in that effort.
Yes, Eileen.
I just want to say that it's a very exciting time to be on the Conservation Commission right now, because an awful lot is getting done and a lot is being accomplished, and more lands are being conserved, and various things are happening on the conservation lands and things like that. So, as Jody just pointed out, it's a really good committee to get in on. You're not going to sit around yawning all night. There's things that are going on, and you have, again, on that commission, you have a lot of good mentors to help you and get you through, anything that you need to learn. No experience necessary.
Okay, well set. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Bill Boyd, seconded by
Second.
Tom Mahon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0-0. Thank you. Good night, everyone.